Chapter 12, A Desperate Decision. Everything else was mere formality after Viktor's acquiescence to the correction in the medical report. The committee spent little time questioning Dr. Chevchenko, Dmitri, and the others, whose testimony added nothing to what was already known. When Colonel Chernov returned to be apprised of the committee's official findings, he strongly expressed once again the same suspicions that he had consistently presented in the past. "While I have no proof as yet," Chernov declared, "I'm convinced that Dr. Koryev is the main link in all three deaths. Furthermore, I also suspect that he was never a Marxist. He has always had disloyal leanings toward the West, even though so far nothing of that nature has been picked up on any of our monitors in his office or lab or apartment. I urge the committee not to send him to Paris. He's a high risk beyond our borders. He knows too much." "We understand your feelings and have our own suspicions," replied Gorky. "But without Koryev to head it, our delegation would not be taken seriously, and that would jeopardize our entire mission. You don't deny that?" "I'm thinking of the risk, sir, of having a disloyal man on the team." "You are in charge, Colonel," Gorky reminded him icily. "Are you suggesting that you can't handle the situation? The committee thought you were competent, in spite of the fact that we entrusted you with the investigation of these deaths, and your latest report adds no new insights." "I apologize for the lack of progress, sir." "We're interested in results, not apologies, Colonel. You have your assignment. Are there any further questions?" "No, sir." When Dmitri returned to the lab late in the day after his testimony had been taken, there was no opportunity to ask Viktor how he fared before the committee. Dr. Chevchenko was there, going back over the charts for all three psychics again and again, searching for some clue he had not been able to see in his many previous reviews. Yuri was assisting Pyotr in repairing the wiring that had been ripped out, and the other lab workers were going over all the electronics in every monitoring machine and recording device to make certain that there was no hidden damage. Appearing before the committee had given everyone a fresh motivation for working overtime to make up for the failures of the past. That burden was shared by all under the common guilt of the three deaths that tortured memories and cast a pall upon the future. As the evening wore on, exhaustion overtook them one by one. At last, when the hands of the large clock on the laboratory wall had moved past midnight, only Dmitri and Viktor remained. By this time, Viktor was down the hall in his office, where Dmitri hurried to join him. He found his friend going through file drawers as though his life depended upon it. "These files will still be here when you get back," Dmitri suggested. "You ought to be home packing and getting a good night's sleep." "I am packing," said Viktor, continuing to work without looking up. "I'm gathering some papers that I'll need on my trip." "All of that?" asked Dmitri, waving at an already overstuffed and very large briefcase. Viktor wiped his brow and sat down behind his desk with a tired sigh. "I'll have time to sleep on the plane. This is very important." "Well, tell me, good comrade, how did it go today? I've been dying to find out." "I think it went well, Dmitri. There were some anxious moments when I feared my trip was finished, but in the end I think they were satisfied. I went along with their totally insane idea that the Americans have been killing our best men. That made them happy." Dmitri quickly put a warning finger to his lips and shook his head vigorously, horrified that Viktor would speak so carelessly in his office. "Don't worry, old friend," Viktor responded, laughing at the expression on Dmitri's face. "Do you think they can hide an electronic bug from me? I put together my own detection equipment, and I use it to sweep this office every morning. As fast as they put their bugs in, I take them out." "You do?" Dmitri was astonished at Viktor's boldness. "I do. It was costing them a czar's ransom. Those things are expensive. Finally, they gave up. I haven't found one in weeks, and I just checked again this morning, so don't worry." Dmitri looked relieved, but still apprehensive. "Don't worry," Viktor assured him again, reaching into his shirt pocket to pull out a scrap of paper. Dmitri could see that it was the very one on which Pyotr had copied the message from ARCHON. "I've been thinking a lot about this." "You should destroy that before it destroys you," exclaimed Dmitri in alarm. "I can't. I'm obsessed by it. There has to be an outside intelligence behind these messages." "If you want to survive," Dmitri responded quickly, "you'd better agree with Gorky. The Americans were being probed, and they didn't like it, and they retaliated. It's that simple. It certainly makes sense, so why fight it?" "Certainly, certainly." Viktor's voice dripped sarcasm. "The Americans can kill any of us at will from thousands of miles away. Do you want to be the first to surrender, or shall I? I haven't noticed Gorky waving a white flag. It's still blood red." Viktor paused to let that sink in, then continued. "There's only one explanation that fits the facts, Dmitri. I've wrestled with this, but you just can't escape it. We're dealing with intelligences far more highly evolved than any Americans. I'm convinced the Archons don't have bodies, but they have incredible minds. They must be masters of the psychic power we've been seeking, and they're not happy with what we're doing." "Please, Viktor, stay away from such ideas." "Because I'm afraid of Chernov or Gorky? What about the facts? As a scientist, I have to know the truth." "There's also such a thing as being practical," argued Dmitri passionately. "It won't help the cause of truth to get yourself sent to a labor camp in Siberia. Yell your truth as loud as you want to up there for all the good it will do. You may convince the wolves, but nobody else will hear you." He stood resolutely, put both hands on the front of Viktor's desk, and leaned over until his face was only a foot from his friend's. "You may not like this, Viktor, but I don't think your theory makes any more sense than Gorky's. Take the matter of a motive, for example. The Americans have a good one, but highly evolved non-physical intelligences? What would such entities want with humans? We've got nothing to offer them, if they do in fact exist. And why would they interfere when we try to probe the Americans, but let us proceed with all of our other experiments? I tell you, it doesn't add up. Even if he's wrong, Gorky can make a better case than you can." The outburst ended. Dmitri sank back in his chair. Then he added in a more conciliatory tone, "And I think you're both wrong." "You do?" asked Viktor in surprise. "Then tell me, what's your theory?" "I can't explain it well enough yet, but when I can, then I'll tell you. Now you have me curious, Dmitri, but I can't wait. This thing drives me day and night. I've got to find the answers to this puzzle." Viktor searched around and dug some photocopies of magazine articles out of a drawer, waved them at Dmitri, then dropped them onto the pile that was overflowing his briefcase. "I've been reading some papers, like these, by an American psychic researcher named Ken Inman. He argues very persuasively for non-physical intelligences being behind all psychic power. He has some revolutionary ideas that are quite convincing, but I can't get anything recent from him. It's all at least 2 years old. Supposing he's made contact with some entities, like Archon perhaps, and that's why he suddenly says nothing anymore. This could be the secret behind the Americans' new power. They certainly didn't have such capabilities a short while ago. That's not like you, Viktor, accepting theories from the Americans. It could be deliberate misinformation." "It makes sense, Dmitri. More sense than the pig-headed materialism we're stuck with over here in spite of the supposed fall of communism. You saw what happened to Yakov. That's not misinformation. I'm awed by such power. It's some kind of mind energy, and it's far beyond anything we or the Americans are capable of on our own." "I agree with you, but you're fighting a rising tidal wave of popular opinion that you can't stop. You know the Americans. Some of the motivational experts the Kremlin has brought in to help us install a modified capitalism talk about unlimited human potential." Viktor smiled derisively. Any child knows better than that. There are obvious limits, Dmitri, and what we've seen with our own eyes is light years beyond anything reasonable. Both friends lapsed into thoughtful silence as Viktor returned to searching the drawers of his desk for documents he wanted to take with him. At last he paused in his work and picked up the conversation again. I've searched every encyclopedia we have and tried to recall everything I know from history or mythology to find some clue as to the identity of Archon. Yes, tell me, responded Dmitri eagerly. I thought this subject was taboo. Are you sure we shouldn't just drop it? It's too late to play games, said Dmitri earnestly. Don't joke about something so important. Now come out with it. Archon is the Greek word for ruler. The Archons were a group of 9 magistrates who ruled ancient Greece. I think these entities use the name Archon to indicate that they are a hierarchy of beings, most likely a group of 9 highly involved intelligences who ruled in the psychic realm and control psychic power. They probably have such incredible powers that they would seem like gods compared with our level of development. This certainly fits with the reference to Prometheus. I thought you were mocking Chernov, but you really think there are godlike creatures out there without bodies who are interested in what we and the Americans are doing in our labs? Tell that to anyone but me, and you will end up in a labor camp under the care of psychiatrists. Not gods in the mythical or religious sense, although they could be the basis for that idea in various religions, but highly evolved entities that our ancestors mistook for gods. I didn't know you were a religious man, Viktor. I'm not. That sounds like a religious idea to me. Are your godlike creatures any different from the gods of the ancient Greeks or today's shamans in Siberia? This is a scientific theory, retorted Viktor indignantly, losing patience with his friend. These entities evolved to their present level. Call it scientific if you want, insisted Dmitri. It's still religion. And I don't think scientific religion makes any better sense than any other religion. If your gods were created by evolution, then they are no better than the gods of the most primitive and superstitious peoples. They certainly couldn't have created the universe. Viktor leaned back in his chair and gave Dmitri a long, curious look. I never knew you were interested in religion at all. This is a side of you, my friend, that I never suspected. Have you become religious recently? We're talking truth and facts, and what makes sense, replied Dmitri, deliberately avoiding the question. All I'm telling you is that the only God that makes sense would have created the universe, and we would all be responsible to him. There could be beings he has created with more power than we have, angels or demons, but there aren't any gods out there for the atheist to look up to. You amaze me, Dmitri. Is this related to your theory of what's behind psychic power? Dmitri nodded. I've been hoping we could discuss this, perhaps when you get back. Now isn't the time. Viktor gave him another long look. And we always have to be so careful, don't we? With whom we speak, what we say, always with the cloud over our heads that someone will report us. Viktor's voice was rising in anger. Materialist ideology continues to be an albatross around our necks. It stifles our research and makes me sick. The whole human race may be in danger, and we can't pursue certain possibilities. So Marx and Lenin still rule us from their graves. Confronted by the hopelessness they faced, the two friends lapsed into silence, while Viktor continued pulling papers from the drawers in his desk. At last he decided that he had to share with Dmitri the secret he'd been guarding closely for so long. Viktor straightened up from his work and leaned across the desk to face Dmitri. I've made a big decision, old friend. What is impossible here is possible in the West. They're open to considering non-physical extension of the universe and intelligent life. Dmitri looked from the open drawers to the overstuffed briefcase. The truth was beginning to sink in. Viktor, you're not. I've got to talk to the Americans. I want to find Dr. Inman. We have to compare information. You can do that in Paris at the Congress, exclaimed Dmitri hopefully. With Chernov breathing down my neck? Even if I had complete freedom in Paris, we're only there a week. That's not enough time to scratch the surface. And Inman may not even be there. Dmitri, old friend, we've been together a long time, but I think we must now say farewell. Their eyes met in a long silence. No words could express the look that passed between them. What it meant to trust someone in a society that destroyed all trust, where one's best friend or even a lover might be an informer, or a friend might turn into an informer for an advantage or be forced into betrayal against his or her will in any one of 100 tried and proven ways. Such an existence could never be explained to those who had not experienced the nightmare of fear and the pain of biting one's tongue 1,000 times a day. Ironically, here at this top-secret base, where 24-hour surveillance of every individual was practiced in its ultimate perfection, they had found one another. It had not been easy. There have been weeks of guarded looks passing between them, covertly at first, tentative, questioning. No words, just an occasional fleeting hint in the eyes, until each thought he knew. Then one of them, it had been Dmitri, had made the first careful remark, testing Viktor in the middle of a sentence with a whispered sarcasm about hidden listening devices. Viktor had made no verbal response, but his eyes had told Dmitri what he had sensed for some time. Eating their sandwiches alone together later that day on a secluded bench outside, they had loosed upon each other a flood of pent-up resentments against the regime, then laughed almost hysterically at the intensity of the catharsis. Secretly, and with great care not to give any outward sign to the others on the base, their friendship had grown firm and deep, and now it was to be no more. They both stood suddenly, and Viktor came around from behind his desk. There was a swift, fierce embrace. They held each other for another moment at arm's length. If you make the attempt and fail, you know what that means. Dmitri was somber. I'll be praying for you, Viktor. Viktor looked at his friend in amazement. You pray? Dmitri nodded. So that's what you were telling me. You're a believer. Dmitri nodded again. It's something very new to me, and I'm beginning to wonder how I can stay in this kind of work. Of course, once they find out... I'm not a believer, replied Viktor firmly, and I never will be. You can pray if you want, but I don't think the gods will listen. Why should they? As you said, what can we offer them? The whole universe is a jungle, the survival of the fittest. I'm just trying to survive. I pray that you do, and that you will very soon believe in the true God. Of course, we have nothing to give him except ourselves, and that's why the forgiveness he offers is a gift of his grace. He is loving and kind and gracious. You need him, Viktor, and he will not turn you away if you call upon him. Please remember that. And you watch your step, too, Viktor managed to say, putting a hand on Dmitri's shoulder. I'll be worrying about you. They embraced again briefly, tears welling up to blur their vision, voices now too choked for further speech. Dmitri almost ran from the room. At the door he turned around and made a feeble last gesture of farewell, but Viktor was once again engrossed in his feverish stripping of files. Dmitri understood. He hurried down the hall, the void within growing in size and pain with every step. The silence had begun again.